the skies over Europe have become a growing source of unease. In recent weeks and months, reports of mysterious drones flying across European airspace have soared to alarming levels. Authorities in several countries have warned that these incursions are not random, but appear to be coordinated and deliberate. In September, Denmark was forced to close several airports after what officials described as a coordinated drone attack. The disruption paralyzed air travel and raised the urgent question, who is behind these flights? That question has taken on a new urgency after French forces seized an oil tanker suspected of being part of Russia's so-called shadow fleet. This vast network of vessels is believed to be used to evade international sanctions by secretly transporting Russian oil. According to maritime tracking data, the tanker in question was detected off the coast of Denmark at the very time drones were seen in Danish airspace. While French authorities have not yet confirmed whether this particular ship was directly involved in drone operations, the coincidence has intensified European suspicions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reacted sharply to these developments. He warned European governments there is now intelligence that indicates the Russians are using tankers to launch and operate drones against European countries. This is yet more evidence why the Baltic Sea and other seas must be closed to Russian tankers, at the very least to the shadow fleet. Zelensky framed the drone threat as part of Russia's broader pattern of hostility toward Europe. He reminded his audience, we are in a confrontation with Russia, which for several years has been a very aggressive actor in our informational space. We have seen it in the context of elections, in multiplying cyber attacks, in launching a war of aggression in Ukraine, using nuclear threats, and now, as we clearly see, provoking in aerial spaces across Europe. Officials share the concern that the shadow fleet has become more than just an economic loophole. It may now be a tool of hybrid warfare. A European security official summarized the issue in blunt terms. We are facing a lot of problems with the shadow fleet, and that has been the case especially in the Baltic Sea for quite a long time. We are working very closely together to battle this situation. For years, Western analysts have tracked the shadow fleet primarily as an economic enabler of Russia's war effort, helping Moscow sell oil outside the price cap imposed by G7 nations. But new evidence suggests that the same vessels may be contributing to aerial provocations and sabotage. Investigators note that these ships often appear in the vicinity of critical undersea cables and infrastructure. Their anchors have in several cases been found dragging across the seabed, cutting or damaging communication lines, acts that have been described as sabotage disguised as maritime accidents. Now the focus is shifting to the possibility that drones have been launched from the decks of these vessels. One French-seized tanker was reportedly stationed off the Danish coast during the same period as the recent drone incursions. Security experts point out that the flat, open surface of a tanker deck could serve as a convenient launchpad for drones operating over the sea. European states are increasingly moving beyond diplomatic protests and financial sanctions to direct enforcement actions at sea. The French Navy's decision to board and detain a shadow fleet vessel marks a significant escalation. It follows similar actions by other nations. Last year, Finland seized a tanker after it damaged undersea cables, and Sweden has inspected several such ships for comparable incidents. These steps highlight a growing willingness among European countries to intercept and physically investigate suspect vessels, even in international waters. Officials argue that such measures are necessary to protect maritime infrastructure and regional security. Yet Moscow continues to deny any role in the drone flights. Russian authorities routinely insist that the shadow fleet ships are not formally under Russian control, pointing out that many sail under foreign flags and carry non-Russian insurance. However, most of the crews are Russian, and the vessels typically travel to or from Russian ports. Western officials believe this is part of a strategy of plausible deniability, an effort to blur responsibility while continuing operations that serve Russian interests. The latest drone incursions have renewed debate over how Europe should defend its skies. A proposal gaining attention is the creation of a drone wall, a coordinated network of early warning systems, ground-based defences and rapid response units stretching across Europe's eastern flank. This concept was a central theme at the recent European Union summit in Copenhagen, the same city that saw airports shut down due to drone threats just weeks earlier. Speaking alongside Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, President Zelensky declared, "I don't care if you call it a drone wall, a drone dome, or a drone rapid response force. What's clear is that European countries need to have more capabilities to stop these drones like we in Ukraine have." His comments underscored Ukraine's experience as a testing ground for modern drone warfare and his call for European nations to learn from that experience. Some leaders, however, are wary of the term drone wall. They fear it may create false expectations among citizens, suggesting that such a defence could be impenetrable, when in reality no system can guarantee the interception of every drone. Military experts emphasise that the effort will require multiple layers of defence, combining radar detection, electronic jamming, air defence missiles, and cooperative sharing of real-time intelligence. They also warn that the cost will be high and that the technology must be adapted to counter rapidly evolving drone tactics. Germany's Defence Minister Boris Pistorius has cautioned that a comprehensive drone wall cannot be deployed in the short term. He estimates that it would take 3 to 5 years before an integrated system could be operational across the region. Nevertheless, the recent incidents have given the debate new urgency. Many European leaders now agree that delaying counter-drone measures is no longer an option. French President Emmanuel Macron went a step further, making clear that European nations will act decisively when drones cross their borders. We can shoot these things down if they come into our airspace. We're not here to give notice about it. His words echoed earlier statements from Polish leaders and signalled a hardening stance against unauthorised drone activity. The seizure of the tanker by France has also prompted calls for stricter maritime monitoring. Officials are discussing the possibility of establishing designated exclusion zones for suspect vessels in the Baltic and North Seas, along with expanded sanctions and inspections. These debates highlight a larger shift in Europe's approach to security. For years, the continent relied mainly on diplomatic pressure, sanctions, and economic leverage. But as unconventional threats from cyber attacks to drone incursions grow more acute, European countries are increasingly prepared to take direct operational measures to safeguard their airspace, seas, and critical infrastructure. The situation has also underscored the importance of NATO-EU coordination. While NATO supports the development of counter-drone systems, funding and deployment will largely depend on European Union mechanisms and national budgets. This division of responsibilities has sparked debate about how quickly Europe can respond to emerging threats. Despite the challenges, there is a growing consensus that passivity is no longer viable. The drone flights over Denmark, the suspected role of shadow fleet vessels, and the persistent denials from Moscow have combined to create a sense of immediacy and risk that European leaders can no longer ignore. For ordinary citizens, the issue may seem remote, playing out over distant seas or in the corridors of European summits, but the closure of airports in Denmark and the disruption of critical infrastructure serve as stark reminders that these threats have direct consequences for daily life and national security. As investigations continue into the tanker seized by the French Navy, European nations face critical decisions: how to enforce maritime sanctions more effectively, how to finance and deploy a coordinated air defence system, and how to confront a hybrid threat that blends economic, military and technological tactics. The outcome of these deliberations will shape Europe's security posture for years to come. It will determine whether the continent can defend its skies and seas against unconventional tactics that defy traditional military boundaries. In the meantime, the seizure of the Shadow Fleet tanker stands as a symbol of a new phase in Europe's confrontation with Russia, one in which oil tankers can double as drone launch platforms and civilian infrastructure can become a battlefield without warning. The coming months will reveal whether European leaders can translate their growing sense of urgency into concrete action before the next wave of drones crosses their skies.